Good morning, everybody. Today is the 21st day in the month of June, 2022. My name is Heritage Adisa, Markets Analyst at HFM Nigeria. As always, we check through the markets, find out what the overall sentiment is, if they provide opportunities, and then how we can take advantage of it. But like always, please remember this is just a communication material, and nothing in this material contains or should be considered as investment advice or investment recommendation. Users acknowledge that investments in FX and CFD products is characterized by a certain degree of uncertainty, and that any investment of this nature involves a high level of risk for which users are solely responsible and liable. Now, what we have this morning in terms of the overall market environment is one of those days where you want to be more and more cautious. Like I said earlier here, yes, we have a slight bounce in equities, but really, it's more of just a pullback, more of just a bounce, a breather, because nothing has really changed. Now, does it mean that the breather cannot extend more? Of course it can. It can extend more, it can even rally more. But in terms of convictions, though, it's a little bit, lower on the back of that, right? I had it written down earlier. I said, I'm not reading much into the slight bounce in equities as negative remains unchanged. Equities generally start the day on a positive note across board. You look at equity generally, they're more on the green. I'll just quickly look at that. Quick one, just quickly look at equities, for example, more on the green side across board, right? But still, my equities, for example, you see more over on the green side, most of them positive. Yes, the VIX is down, but most of them generally on the positive side, and that's where we got that from. But apart from that, okay, let's continue with that. The environment generally in the market is still better in terms of the recent events compared to what we had on Friday last week. Yesterday was a lot slower because of the bank holiday. That's June 10th, national independence from the US. So there's that. But so far today, the environment is better despite lack of any fresh tangible catalyst, right? So far. Now, you look at the US 500F, that's the US 500 futures contract, and then it's up about 0.43% so far, gently above 3,700. Oil price generally are also seeing some, breather, right? Pairing some of the losses that we had, from late last week. US oil, for example, will test 109.25. That's yesterday's high as well, which is also there to look out for. You look at measures of volatility are mostly low as well. Now, big stories, or what were the main stories that happened over the session? We had, first of all, we had the RBA Governor Low on the wire, and we also had the meeting minutes, right, from the Reserve Bank of Australia's last meeting, where mostly still a hawkish general meeting. RBA Governor Low said, it reaffirmed the market expectations for further rate hikes are still very much in play, and then in the meeting, it would be more of either a 25 basis point or a 50 basis point hike, which is what will be debated, although he ruled out a 75 basis point hike. And he said for an economy that has low unemployment and a very high inflation, there is still, interest rates are still very low. And that means that more interest rates increases are to be expected. But that even in itself failed to really, provide support for the Australian dollar. And it's still one of the weakest currencies so far today. As a cyclical currency, that does well in a very positive market environment, very positive global growth environment, and does badly in a negative growth environment. Clearly, the Aussie is tuning into that longer term overall full market slower expectations, and that is weighing down on the currency. As even with Kiwi is also down as well. The both share the bottom spot on FX, so far today, despite the fact that equities are taking a breather and seeing some green side, and that calls for some caution. The equities are a little bit supported. Aussie and Kiwi should not be doing that badly, but they on the downside, or as laggards amongst the majors, and equity is doing better. That clearly calls for some caution. Now, having said that, though, the moves are still very much marginal, which is something I'm going to show us in a bit. JPY also weaker as well in today's session. It's been weak for a while. There's been a lot of reasons for that. First of all, interest rate differentials has been a reason for that. Safe haven appeal has dropped a bit because of the depletion of the current account surplus. There is that as well. Massive dovish. I already mentioned that dovish Bank of Japan is still there as well. And then there's been some form of jawboning, right? Using comments to try and change, asset prices, change market's view on assets. And then we had one from Finance Minister Suzuki earlier as well, but that didn't really do much for, the Japanese yen. On the other hand, and on the upside, you have the CAD and the dollar leading to the majors. Bond yields are gently higher, but not by much. Even the dollar being strong, so it's not by much. It's still mostly generally still even flat. But the CAD is enjoying some form of that slight upside we're seeing oil prices, but not really too much into that just yet, right? Even the pound is doing a little bit better as well in today's session. But I said it's important to note that the moves that we've seen so far are mostly marginal and generally tentative. Right? US traders get back into the trade later today after yesterday's bank holiday. That could help us in a way. But apart from that, I mean, we're not seeing so much. Overall sentiment fares better in today's session as markets continue to trade, take a breather following strong downside late last week, right? But nothing has really changed on a macro level with broad expectations for global economic recovery, economic recession amid central bank tightening. That's expectation is still very much dominant, and that remains a negative for equities. So that's at the back of our minds. Now, what FX trading makes equities and bond yields, trading a bit marginally higher, right? Convictions are a little lower to try and chase any of the moves we're seeing so far today. And on the calendar today, central bank commentary will be very interesting. ECB McCall will be on the wires. Fed Barkin will also be on the wires as well. But apart from that, there's really not so much, scheduled on the calendar. Yeah, we also have one from Canada. I'll look at it now in a bit. Now, just a quick look at charts, and then we'll call it a day. Now, quickly, for equities, this is the bounce we're talking about, up about 0.77% so far, and then compared to, added to yesterday's moves, generally up nearly 1.7%, right? But you look at the kinds of moves that we've had in recent time. I mean, this is really not much to write home about. And then heading into resistance like this key 3800, right? 30, let me see, 3750 rather, 3750. I think it's a 750 as well. This level, right, you want to also be very cautious here because, I mean, that's also a very interesting, resistance level, previous support, right, going back to the 13th of June, right? Okay, I think let's get that clear, all right? So we have one here, just quickly draw it out. All right, so heading into a support level, like a resistance level like this, previous support is also something that you want to also be very, 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 cautious about. That just says, makes me a little bit more patient, really, in trying to chase any of the moves that we've seen so far. But there is that. Having said that, most of the equities really have that same overall bias, slight upside into this session. But I mean, compared to the kinds of moves that we've seen so far, there's really, really not much, we're trying to latch onto that. Now, if you want to look at something like this is what I'm talking about as well, the same story here on the US, US 100, where the moves are there, but we're heading into clear areas of resistance, which means it makes me a little bit more cautious in trying to chase any of this. I would rather prefer a downside rather than even looking for upside on this particular kind of moves. But it's what we have, is what we're seeing, and then we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, just a quick one to give us context, right? You look at talk about the stronger currencies being the dollar, the CAD, weaker currencies being the Aussie and the Kiwi. Let's just look at, a pair of both of them. Let's say USD versus the CAD, for example. Now, you look at USD CAD, for example, right? And then you notice that, the moves that we have now, so far, yes, it's down by just 0.5%, 0.5% so far today. But right now we're heading into clear areas of support as well. Support going back to the 16th of June, very close to the one on the 15th of June, as well as the one on the 14th of June, even resistance going back to the 13th of June, right? All of that just, it just makes it a little bit tricky by trying to chase any of the moves that we have so far today. You want to look at AUD, USD as well. If you look at this as well, right? Yes, interesting. You want to look at that, but the kinds of moves that we're seeing so far, basically not much done at all, right? Up, down, really not much. And then in market environments like this, I was talking to an analyst friend of mine, and then he said that he doesn't like the market environment we're seeing. And the days like that, the days where things are not really clear, not really smooth, not really, you're not feeling it, because it's not just about strong and weak. Statistically, currencies will move, right? One will definitely be leading, one will be lagging. But you have to look at things in context, look at things generally, and then the question is, has there been any major change in market environment? No. Has there been any strong, catalyst to drive asset prices? No. Are the moves big enough? No, they're marginal. Are there mixed flows in markets? Absolutely, there are mixed flows. In such environments, you're better off being more patient, waiting it out for something clearer, something more tangible, to latch onto. And then you look across to the calendar as well. It's really another light one is getting the day ahead. This hasn't loaded out. It's mostly central bank meetings, most of central bank speeches rather, one from Fed and one from the ECB as well. And then there's one for Canada too as well in terms of data points. But having said all of that, I'm being more patient. I'm being more, cautious in terms of, the moves, waiting out for something more tangible to latch onto. But that's what I have from my end. If you have any questions about this, you can always reach out, with a message or with a comment, and then we can see, if you have any ideas, actually, we can look at it together and then see, what we can, do with that. So that's it for now. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, like I said, do not hesitate to ask. I would always do our best to help. Thank you and do enjoy the rest of the trading session. Goodbye for now.